So before we get started, I want to show you the bows I made for the movie. Me and my friend went. I made a gangle ribbon for me and a gummy goo ribbon for her, and it was so fun to make the little bows and then go there to the movie. It was super cool. But yeah, continue to the video. Hey there. So I'm going to be talking about the Amazing Digital Circus movie today. I went to go see it in theaters. 6 out of 10. Not that good, but not that bad. A lot better than I expected it. I was excited to see how things end. I know there were spoilers online, I heard all that part, but I wanted to see how it would play out for myself. I just want to talk about my gripes with the movie, and then I'll go into some positive things towards the end. But there's been a lot on my mind the past few days since I've seen this movie, and all I'm going to say is that this movie had a lot of potential, but it did not give how I thought it should have gave. So my first gripe with the movie is Pomni, in the sense that this movie gave her an arc of like trying to keep everyone together, trying to be peaceful, which I feel like there was a few episodes, like in later episodes, she was trying to be a lot more positive and bring people together, but I feel like that arc wasn't giving enough for it to carry over in the movie. It was going good until Jax abstracted, and then everyone was all separated and mourning, and everybody was just all over the place, and then she was all like, oh my gosh, I'm trying to keep everyone, like I can't even do anything. Girl, you have not really been doing that. I feel like something I do like is how she was a lot more kinder to everybody. I feel like there have been a lot of discourse online saying that low-key she's a bird, she's only so kind to the men and only is understanding to the men, but I could really see that contradiction in the movie, especially with Ragatha. They have like a little friendship thing going on, which was nice to see, I guess, because everyone was tired of the bird behavior. And I want to also talk about Zubul and Gangle really getting no part of the movie at all. There is a small tiny arc with Gangle where after Jax abstracts, then she's all like, oh my gosh, I can't cry for him, I can't cry for him. And I was very, very annoyed by that arc completely. Why would she cry for her abuser? Someone who has abused and made fun of her and ridiculed her and brought her down mentally, emotionally, physically since she entered the circus. Like there's even a part in the movie where it's supposed to be Jax's flashback, but Gangle spawns in the circus, and before she can even say, where the hell am I, he's already making jokes, making fun of her. Let's call her Gangle because look how she looks. I'm surprised she's not crying tears of joy. What's going on? It doesn't make sense. Another thing that pissed me off immensely was that she was blaming herself immediately after he abstracted. Immediately. Why would you blame yourself? And Zubul had to comfort her and tell her, none of this is your fault. It was never about Gangle. It was never about Zubul. It was never about Ribbit. It was all his inner self. It was all his projection of his own problems onto her. And he was so awful to her. He made her feel that way. That is so awful. So I feel like her whole arc of I can't cry for him was stupid and didn't feel like a pondering question and a rhetorical dud to the viewer. Everyone knows why she wouldn't cry for Jax. And the fact that her feelings weren't validated after all that Jax has done to her specifically. She has been for years the target of his ridicule and his pain and his anger. So I do not blame her for not crying, you know? But like eventually she's able to cry for him or whatever. And another thing I don't like is that all the accountability on what he did to Ribbit was taken, but none to Gangle. That was never acknowledged in the movie. I feel like that whole arc of her figuring out her emotions when it comes to Jack's abstraction was just to give her something to do, because I don't feel like they did much with Zubul, and they couldn't have them not both doing something. She had that episode one time, but I feel like she's somewhat underdeveloped. Well, she's like a side character, but we know some side characters get a lot more attention than others, so it wouldn't hurt to get more Gangle. Zubul, they didn't really get much screen time either. Aside from reiterating how they wanted to make their mark on the world, there really wasn't much of a Zubul arc except for comforting Gangle, giving their opinions on Jax's abstraction, and then they did have a little moment where they were talking about forgiving Cain, but having to take some time after all that has happened after his whole meltdown. But besides that, no Zubul. Zubul didn't have very much of an arc, and I think that's because the screen time was given to a certain bunny, so nobody else had time to shine. It would have been nice to get a whole long arc like a certain bunny did. Jax's arc was way too long. He was at least 75% of the movie. I don't really even remember that much of the movie except for all that's happened with Jax. It went all the way from the beginning when his parents, not even to when his parents conceived him, but when Adam and Eve ate the apple, and then went all the way, and then to his parents, then to birth him. That's how far back his story went to. It just went all the way back. That was too much Jax. And honestly, in the theater, I was ready to hear him out. I was ready to hear why he's such an awful character, why he does the things he does. I was excited to see what made up Jax and what made up his mind and what made him to be the way he is. But I was disappointed, man. I was disappointed. And like, this is going to be controversial, but I don't think his backstory is as nearly as sad enough for him to justify his actions. So his whole arc was, oh, whatever, he didn't have a good relationship with his dad, he had an okay with relationship with his mom, his parents got divorced. Whoop-de-doo. People's parents get divorced every day. 50% of marriages end in divorce, and you know how many people have kids on average? So how many people are divorcee kids? Tons. I bet the video is probably gonna get like 50 views or whatever, and I bet at least like 25 of you have divorced parents. So come on, bro. Come on. He's an angsty teen, but come on, man. And then I guess, and I feel like if done correctly, his arc could have completely worked. His whole thing was his parents got divorced. He was sad. He had a bad relationship with his dad. He didn't come back after the divorce or whatever. And then his mom, he vented to his mom one day and she gave a confusing reaction. He was berated, he was laughed at, and at the end of that very confusing time, he was hugged. He pushed her, he thought he killed her. It's implied that he didn't, and then he was homeless. If he had described years of drawn out abuse, I feel like his whole thing of everyone's trying to manipulate me, people want to get to know me so they can use me and confuse me, that would make a lot more sense. That would be a lot more of a solid argument on why he is the way he is and why he does the things that he does. And even though I'm being very harsh right now, I do feel like his feelings are valid, but you can be a victim and a perpetrator of harm at the same time. That's what needs to be acknowledged by him. He has done a lot of harm to others because of the way he feels, which is not okay. I mean, look at Kinger. You don't think that he hasn't had some sort of tussle with his inner self on contributing to being stuck in this game, making all these people abstract because he was contributing to that, making his own wife abstract, losing his own wife, his life, all of that. You don't think that affected him, but he still doesn't go around making that everyone else's problem. I know everyone is different, but I was really, really, really hoping and expecting something better, something different. I was ready to hear Jax out. I was ready to defend him. I am not a Jax defender, but I was like, okay, maybe in this movie I will be, but disappointment. Because if we think about Jax's upbringing and his root of trauma versus everything else, all the trauma he's put upon how many people in the circus? I guess Pomni a little bit, Ragatha, Ribbit, Kaufmo, Gangle, Zubul, literally everyone in the circus. He quite literally led to the downfall of Ribbit's abstraction. His arc was so long and unnecessary, and something that annoys the frick out of me. Pomni goes to contain Jax's abstraction. She's able to go and see how everyone is perceived in the circus and get flashbacks on his memories. She gets to stand and see and talk to and feel Jax for the very last time. And for a minute, for a split second, I was like, she's going to be able to pull him outside of his abstraction. She's going to be able to bring him back out to himself. But no. It would have been hella corny if he was brought back by the power of friendship, but that whole arc just for him to stay abstracted pissed me the frick off. It would have been nice to see. It would have been exciting. He would have been able to come out of his abstraction, take accountability, and become a better person. And maybe overall he would be more of a likable character. And his problems never really came to a resolution. Maybe it was supposed to be meant that way. Not every problem needs to be solved. But I really don't like how he was just left to sit in his own misery for the rest of eternity. that was pretty disappointing, getting that much of Jax and then he's just stayed abstracted. But how awful is abstraction, sitting in your own misery, replaying thoughts in your head over and over and over again for all eternity? Like right now, Ribbit's probably sitting, pondering, wondering, doubting, and regretting ever asking Jax about himself and his personal life, and she's just gonna have to sit with that forever. And Kaufmo, thinking about an exit he's never going to find because he's going to be in abstraction forever. So abstraction is just hell. Just being engulfed in your own misery and thoughts for the rest of forever, because you're going to be in there forever. That's how. There was way too much Jax and there was not enough Kane. So Kane eventually ended up coming back, but he ended up being thrusted into the void. He had some self-reflection. It would have been nice to see him battle more with his inner turmoil, the red dot versus the blue dot, exploring that part of himself, and maybe even seeing the blue dot being manifested into its own sentient AI, much like Kane, them having an argument, them having some sort of fight, them having some sort of discussion. That would have been interesting. We also learned that he could do things like access the internet. He ended up eliminating a lot of his capabilities to be able to see the other perspectives of the people in the circus, but it would have been nice if there was a huge arc being able to explore that. It also would have been really, really cool to see if he explored more on his purpose. His whole thing for a little bit was like, I may not be good at the thing I was made to do, but wouldn't it have been cool if he thought outside the box? I'm more than what I was made to do. Maybe he could find a different purpose, a different thing to live for. He is a sentient AI after all. Like, he can figure things out on his own. He can come up with complex perspectives. He could find a new mission in life, but that was never really addressed. Really, not that bad of a movie. I'm being very critical, but not that bad of a movie. The animation was absolutely beautiful in theaters to see. I loved the fish at the beginning. He was so funny. It was nice to see a bonding moment between Ragatha and Pomni. I like that Kane eventually gave them the freedom to make their own circus, to make things their own way, and was open to hearing their perspectives. I'm glad they went with the theory and the ending that made the most sense, being a brain scan, because that dead rotting theory was stupid. It made no sense. And it really sucks that Gooseworks says that they're done with the series completely, because I feel like there's so many unanswered questions. I have so much I want to know about their life after this complete change. I want to know what happens to the abstractions. I want to see more about Ribbit. I want to see more about Kaufmo. I want to know more about the backstories of other characters like Gangle and Zubul and Ragatha. I want to know what happened between Ragatha and her mom in detail. But yes, thank you for listening to my opinions, my rant, and watching my speed paint. Like and subscribe if you want. You don't have to. I'm not going to make you. But yeah, bye-bye.